Nobody's perfect. Video games often have mistakes in them, and developers often patch them out. But sometimes people love them and, well, they leave them in. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 video game mistakes that were just too good to cut. Starting off with number 10, it's Puppet Madness from My Friendly Neighborhood. So, Muppet-themed horror sounds like the dumbest thing ever, or just a particularly misguided attempt to get in on the Five Nights at Freddy's bandwagon, but My Friendly Neighborhood is actually a pretty damn good game. I swear. I'm not saying you'll definitely like it. It's definitely got a specific audience it's gearing towards, but I enjoy it. I think it's a good game. It definitely takes the concept to where it needs to go, let's just say that. That in mind, let's take a look at one of the freakiest bugs to somehow stay in a game. While working on the game in pre-production, one of the guys making it, named John Zemansky, posted a bizarre video where one of the puppet stalkers, named Norman, suddenly split into dozens more of the same guy and attacked. The video quickly went viral because of how bizarre it was, but as revealed by the devs, the whole thing was completely unintentional. What happened was that they wanted multiple Normans around in the level, but through some bug, they all spawned in the same place. It just looked like a one puppet guy, but it was actually multiple of them inhabiting the same spot, so when they got alerted, they all went nuts at the same time. In the thread, they revealed all of this. The developer said they intended to keep this in the game somewhere, and yeah, the final release, it does have this. Something like this does happen. When you reach the basement after getting a key item from the ticket machine, a Norman, just like the one in the clip, appears, and if you shoot him, he explodes into copies just like in the clip. It's unusual because the glitch was revealed before the actual game even came out, but we do know they followed through on their promise. There's something very similar to the glitch in the final game. It was just too good, they had to leave it in.
I can spew all sorts of things. I'm trying to count to 10. To 10. 1, 2, 3. Bye.
Learn your alphabet, huh?
Moving on to number 9, the Gatling laser glitch from Fallout 4. So in the fourth mainline Fallout game, certain legendary weapons can have the never-ending legendary effect where instead of drawing ammo from the clip like normal, they use ammo directly from your inventory so you never have to reload. The Gatling laser was meant to do something different because instead of drawing ammo from the laser ammo, it would use fusion cores to power itself, which was all fine and good except there was a bug and the gun wouldn't actually drain the fusion core, at least most of the time. Because of this, there are no legendary Gatling lasers in the random drop pool in Fallout 4. No matter how many legendary enemies you kill, they'll never drop one of these specific weapons. Bethesda must have realized how fun it would be to have a gun with true infinite ammo, so with the Nuka World DLC, they made exactly one gun with these unique properties, the Eternus. It's a fun concept, but if you've actually used the thing, you know it never actually fixed the bug, because the way the ammo works in this thing is very, very inconsistent. Sometimes it works as intended and drains 33% of a fusion core on the first shot, then never again, but sometimes it'll use an entire fusion core in just a few shots, sometimes it'll only fire shots equal to the amount of fusion cores you have, and then consume an entire core. The list goes on. Sometimes they'll just constantly drain a core down to about 10% and then switch cores and do it again, rendering most of your cores useless. It's all really inconsistent and doesn't make a lot of sense, so it's pretty obvious the whole thing is still a bug that they never got around to fixing. Still, it's fun to have one of these things in the game at all. If you know what you're getting into, it's still fun to mess around with, but at the end of the day, this infinite ammo gun might actually be less power efficient than a regular old Gatling laser. And number 8 is the melee boost from No Man's Sky, a ubiquitous trick that's commonly used by just about anyone playing the game. But it was originally a glitch. The trick itself is very simple. It's simply a way to get a lot of forward momentum while using a jetpack, which is normally very vertically oriented. All you have to do is sprint, hit the melee button, and then quickly hit the jetpack to boost forward into the air rather than straight up. It's extremely simple to do, but it was never an intentional part of the game. I'm not a big-time No Man's Sky player at this point, so I don't know exactly how Hello Games reacted to the trick. I've seen people claim that they never changed the way it works, and I've seen others say they removed it from the game but put it back after Backlash. I do know it's been nerfed in a few ways. Like, you can't melee boost while in the air anymore, but the baseline trick is still in the game, and it has been acknowledged by the developers. They mention melee boosting by name in the 3.37 patch notes, so they're 100% aware of this exploit or glitch or whatever you want to call it, but they're mostly leaving it alone, which is good, because if you're trying to get anyone without it, you know that it's not as good. It would make the game much worse not to have that trick in the game. At number 7 is projectile boosting from Ultra Kill. Yeah, another unintentional thing with boost in the name, but believe me, it's completely different. Ultra Kill's developer fully embraced the leave it in philosophy of game design. There's so many weird little tricks you can do in the game that were never originally intended to be there, but people found them, the devs thought they were cool, so they just kept them. A lot of this stuff doesn't make a lot of sense, but who cares when it's fun? Like, that's what a game's supposed to be, right? Fun? So leave in the fun things. They give the game identity, you know? Anyway, take for example projectile boosting. It's a power-up for a shotgun blast, basically. You get it by meleeing the shotgun pellets as they come out of the barrel. The trick works because the game gives you the ability to parry enemy projectiles by using a melee attack, and the game doesn't differentiate enemy projectiles from your projectile, so if you shoot and mash melee just after firing, you can parry your own bullets, which powers them up and makes them explode on contact. The timing is a little tricky, but once you get the hang of it, you got an easy way to make your shotgun way stronger with only minimal extra effort. Not to be confused with shotgun parrying, which is when you parry an enemy's attack with a point-blank shotgun blast. There's a ton of other little weird tricks in the game, but I don't know, this one stands out for being especially ridiculous. I mean, you punch your own shotgun bullets to make them go faster and do more damage. It's the kind of madness I can get behind for sure. And number 6 is the homing briefcase from Hitman 2. One quirk of Hitman 2 was that throwing projectiles at enemies would always hit because they would literally hone in on the target. When using standard throwing projectile weapons, it wasn't that noticeable, but it didn't take too long for people to start noticing how ridiculous it looked when you would throw a briefcase. The briefcase was big, and more importantly, it was very slow, so you got a really good look at the homing effect in action when throwing it. Like, it could just chase people for days, if necessary.
This is a restricted area! Now show me your hands! See that? He's a pro!
At first, IO Interactive fixed the glitch, well, really more of an unexpected behavior, by making the briefcase fly through the air faster. But players lamented the loss, so the developers eventually brought it back with a special Executive Briefcase MK2, which is a free unlockable for completing the Best Case Scenario challenge pack. They also brought it back for Hitman 3, where you get the item for reaching Mastery level 13 on the last level from Hitman 2, which, believe me, makes sense if you have played the game. All the levels from the previous game were ported into the third one, so yeah, it's kind of confusing, but the important thing here is the developers intentionally brought back the goofy physics of the original briefcase. Look at the description. This physics-bending briefcase is designed to induce fear and terror in whoever gets in its way. Yeah, they knew exactly what they were doing here. And number 5 is the Skyrim astronaut. You know it, you love it. It's the bug that causes giants to send players and NPCs flying into the stratosphere after a single attack. Spend any amount of time playing Skyrim and you'll see it at least once. A giant slacks you so hard that you rocket into the air. The bug has been talked about to death. Literally every list like this will mention the giant space program or whatever. And almost every single time they'll say something to the effect of Bethesda thought it was funny, so they kept it in. Is that actually true, though? I mean, Skyrim has tons of bugs that have never been fixed, and it's not because they're hilarious, they're annoying. no one likes a lot of the bugs that were left in with Skyrim. Well, I did manage to find something of a confirmation. In an interview with Joystick, Todd Howard talked about how their design philosophy for making a game, they wouldn't take anything out of the game to make it less fun, so anything goofy but harmless got left in. I'm pretty sure I've seen somebody specifically mention the crazy powerful giants before somewhere, but damned if I can't find it on the internet anymore. I think Todd is kind of saying that type of thing got left in on purpose, but if you really want to know why a giant is capable of sending you sky high, it seems to involve the damage overflow calculations. When killed, extra damage gets turned into momentum, so when a high-level giant smacks you at low levels, all that damage sends you flying into the air. It's actually something you can do to enemies too if you're strong enough, but it's generally uncommon. So is it worth fixing? Probably not. That and it's fun, and they pledged to leave fun things in. And number 4 is the Tiny Titan from Madden NFL 15, a bizarre bug that was only accessible for a little while, but in that brief time, EA absolutely embraced it. So, in Madden 15 Ultimate Team, there was a Team of the Week. It was a challenge, and for some reason, it made football player Kirksey 1 foot tall. He played exactly the same as any other player, but he was tiny. Watching the game struggle with how to show anything when one of the players involved was 1/6 the size of everyone else, it turned what was supposed to be a simple challenge into total chaos. To EA's credit, instead of pulling the challenge, they leaned right into it. They brought it back for an extra weekend after it gained notoriety, and they put a goofy little trailer which brought in the real Christian Kirksey to play up the joke. Most Madden glitches are not fun, but this one was so absurd and specific. It was just this one guy turned tiny for whatever reason for this one specific Ultimate Team challenge. The rest of the game, he's normal size, but for one brief, glorious moment, he was the Tiny Titan. And number 3 is the homing dash from Sonic Frontiers. Most speedrunning strategies are unintentional and remain that way. With modern games, it can be a constant struggle where the community's trying to find new tricks while the devs are fixing bugs and eliminating them. Many of Sonic's most famous bugs are in their respective games by mistake, obviously, but this one at least, the devs knew about it and left it in on purpose. The trick is simple. You lock onto an enemy, perform the homing attack, but before hitting the enemy, you cancel into a dash, which gives you a lot of forward momentum, and it allows for skilled players to skip large sections of a level. The director of Sonic Frontiers, Morio Kishimoto, learned about this move while making the game, but decided to leave it in as something that would make the game more interesting. His post is in Japanese, but that's essentially what he said. It's not the most interesting trick, but it's not often you get the actual director of a game coming out and saying they left an unintentional trick in the game on purpose, especially in a relatively modern game like this one. Moving on to number 2, it's Glitterhoof from Crusader Kings 2. It all started innocuously enough. In Crusader Kings 2, the hyper-complex game of medieval grand strategy, if your lord had the lunatic trait, then a random event would pop up from time to time where your leader would appoint a horse to his court, based on the apocryphal story of the Roman Emperor Caligula that tried to make his prized horse a consul. This simple text event eventually evolved into something more substantial with the Conclave DLC, where the appointed horse was an actual NPC member of the court with a special horse culture, and their name was Glitterhoof. Alright, all very on purpose so far, clearly, but the horse NPC was supposed to be infertile, and you were not supposed to be able to give them any actual titles. But the complexity of this simulation allowed players to do some goofy stuff with the horse, like appoint them a bishop, which allowed them to get their own horse courtiers. From there, with enough effort, you can make your king a horse, making your entire court horses, and eventually turning all of Europe into a monolithic horse culture. Now, this is clearly unintentional, but the developers recognized how absurd it all was and really just leaned into it. They added more horse-centric events into the game. They included an event chain that would make your horse immortal, and then they went in and added more animals so you could eventually take over the world with bears and cats. For as dour and serious as these games can be, let it be known the developers definitely have a sense of humor about this stuff. And finally, at number 1, Not So Ultima from Final Fantasy II. This spell is generally known as being one of the most powerful spells in the Final Fantasy games, but it was decidedly underwhelming in its first appearance. One of the major plot points of the game is that the heroes need to learn a powerful ancient magic, but when you finally get it, it just kind of sucks. You might chalk it up to the nonsensical leveling system or some other bug that just got left in the game by accident, because it makes no sense that the supposed ultimate magic is so weak. That can't possibly be intentional, right? Well, yes and no. As relayed by the legendary Final Fantasy director Hironobu Sakugachi, they noticed the Ultima spell was way too weak for what it was supposed to be, assumed it was some kind of bug, and went to speak with the programmer. To his surprise, the programmer made that spell that way on purpose, explaining that the spell was made in ancient times, therefore it was made without proper techniques, so it should be worse than any of your spells your characters had now. There is a certain logic to that. Consider weed. I've talked to several old people who smoked the ganj, and every one of them will tell me that weed used to be way weaker. I obviously have no idea, and I neither smoked weed, nor was I alive back in the ancient times, the 1960s. Actually kind of thankful that hippies. Not my favorite. Not my favorite. But that one immediately came to mind just because I've heard that a million times from old people who smoke weed. I mean, you could really apply that logic to anything. The most powerful supercomputer in 1973 sucks compared to the little slab in your pocket nowadays. I just thought weed was funnier. But here's the thing. It's completely insane when you apply that kind of logic to game design. You spent a big chunk of the game hunting for a legendary magic that is called Ultima, as in ultimate. So you kind of expect that spell to be the most badass thing that's ever existed. The programmer absolutely refused to change the spell to make it better, so Sakaguchi resolved to fix it himself. But the programmer ciphered the source code, so it was impossible for anyone but him to fix, so they ended up shipping the game the way it was. Now, this is all secondhand information coming from a discussion with another programmer who does go on to say they don't know if this story is actually true. Maybe he just made the whole story up as a joke and the Ultima spell was really just unintentionally weak. Who knows? But seriously, what's the better story? That the game was just kind of a mess, or an insane programmer held the game hostage because he had a pet theory about development of magic? Yeah, in absence of evidence to the contrary, I'm going to go with option 2 every time. That's frickin' hilarious. Anyway, that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.